guys, so in about half an hour I've got to leave to go see the second film in the Kingsman series, The Golden Circle, and I am so excited for it. But I thought before I went, I'd refresh my memory of the original film by reading the comic, because I bought it recently as part of my graduation present to myself, and what better time than to read the original comic on the day just before I go to see the second film, you know? So I decided to read it now. And it was actually really, really good. I didn't actually know what the storyline was going to be. I just knew that it was the original Kingsman comic. And actually, it does follow the same story as the first film. If you haven't seen the film, I don't think you need to have seen the film to understand the comic, because obviously the comic came first. There's so much about this comic that I really loved. First of all, I loved the storyline of the comic because I love the original film. There's quite a few differences between the comic and the film, which is quite nice to read because it kept it refreshing for me. Instead of Eggsy's dad being a Kingsman who died on duty, he's actually just divorced from his mum and working in a pub, and it's actually Eggsy's uncle who is actually a Kingsman, and that's how he gets recruited. And it's just little subtle changes like that the whole way through, which kept it really refreshing, instead of me sort of reading it going, oh, I've heard this bit, I've seen this bit, I've seen this bit, I've seen this bit, which is really quite nice. And while it does follow the same storyline, those subtle differences really did help. And it was just a really good, fun comic, and the violence in it was something that I severely enjoyed. I wasn't expecting as much violence in this comic as there was, because for some reason in my mind comics aren't violent, even though I have got a Deadpool comic that I've yet to read but I know is violent, and I've also read I Hate Fairyland. I should know by now that comics can be violent and sweary and all the rest of it, and yet at this point, while reading this, I was really quite surprised at how sweary and violent it was. And that doesn't bother me in the slightest, because I love swearing, I love violence, it's some of my favourite things in the world. I love stuff like that, and the film is obviously one of my favourite films, so I'm not exactly squeamish or anything. But reading in a comic was quite a nice experience, because I was totally expecting a more tame version of the Kingsman, and that isn't what I got, which was really, really good fun. I'm not exactly sure what else to say on it, apart from the fact that I really enjoyed it. There were a few things that I could have done with more of, because I feel like there was slightly less character development in the comic than there was in the film, but at the same time I can see why, because there's only 128 pages in this comic. It's not exactly long. Comics aren't long, so you can't fit that much character development into 128 pages of comic book compared to 2 hours of a film, you know? So I was kind of okay with that, and it's sort of like helped by the fact that there is a film, so I knew where the characters were sort of going on their journey and all the rest of it, which was fine. But I kind of feel like I wish that there had been more like character development in there, and a lot more sort of like flashbacks and background on some of the characters. But I was kind of okay with that because of obviously the runtime of it. And I kind of wish that there had been more comics in this series, so Eggsy could have had more adventures and things like that. I'm not exactly sure why there weren't actually any more comics after this original one, because it is just this standalone comic, and then there was nothing, which kind of doesn't make sense to me, because I feel like there should have been a hell of a lot more in a series of comics with like loads of different versions of Eggsy's adventures. But I guess that's kind of backed up now that we have a film series, so I'm not, again, particularly complaining about that. It's not like this is the only thing we'll ever see of the Kingsman. There is obviously a film series, the second one's out today, so I'm not exactly like really, really bothered by that, but I would have liked to see more comics in this series, and it was just little niggly things like that. But again, it's all bolstered by the film, so I'm not particularly like too broken up about it. It's essentially, the Kingsman comic is just a really fun, short, sweet comic that really sort of like transports you into the world of the Kingsman. If you don't mind swearing, and you don't mind violence, and you don't mind nudity, because there is one nude scene in this, and if you don't mind a hell of a lot of sex jokes and slightly offensive jokes made by chavs, you will love this comic. It is amazing to read, especially if you're a fan of the Kingsman. If you love the Kingsman film, definitely go and read this comic, because while it doesn't give you any more additional information, it's really nice just to see the origins of the Kingsman. You know, it's just it's a nice fun thing to read to refresh your memory and to sort of get that background on where the Kingsman came from. But I think that's all I have to really say about this comic, because again, it's only 128 pages long, and I've actually got to get going, and I only wanted to make a quick short video about this because, again, it's not that long, so I couldn't talk about it for hours like I could with a film. But if you do want to see my review of the second film, Kingsman Golden Circle, it will be on my blog. Link to that down below if you want to check that out. But that's all I actually have for the moment. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you've read this comic, please tell me down below what you thought of it, or if you're a really big fan of the film series, tell me down below what you think of the new film or the previous film, or anything about the Kingsman. That'd be great. But if you like this video, please do give me a thumbs up, and if you want to see any more of my reviews, please click subscribe over here, and over here will be the link to my last video, and I will leave the links to all of my social media down below if you want to check me out on any of those. But I hope you enjoyed this video, but until next time guys, bye!